Hi everyone, I know that this body is not finished, but before I finished off the body, I wanted to talk a little bit about sleeves with you as well, and to give you an idea of the decisions I make in relation to sleeves and how I might decide what I'm going to do and how I change my mind as I'm going through. So if you're at this stage now and you finished your body and you're not really sure what to do with your sleeves, my advice is always to try it on, take a look and think about where am I going to wear it, how am I going to wear it, what sleeve length am I going to get the most use out of. That's really important, because if you're always cold and you know that you only ever take out things with long sleeves, then put a long sleeve on it. If it's specifically something that's going to be more beachy, more summer, more casual, you might even opt to leave the sleeves off. Like, I'm looking at this and I could probably get away with no sleeves on this. Just pick up stitches around here and do some kind of a very neat edging. And I may end up doing that possibly as we go through. Like, I'm going to try two. I'm going to try one with a little bit of a sleeve and one where I pick it up and just do a little edging to see a very, very short one with an I-cord bind off. And with a lot of these things, I think it's about being open to the possibilities of what it might look like and making sure that you make the most use out of it. But at this point, like when I do get started on it, what I'm going to do first of all is I'll do a steam block so this lies flat, and then I'll try it on again. And then I'll pick up stitches and just get started with, you could maybe do, maybe pull this out here, like a short sleeve just this long, just stockinette stitch down that far could be really nice. And then putting an I-cord edging on the bottom if you had I-cord here. If you did ribbing on the edge here, I'd possibly do ribbing on the bottom here. If you want to go for a longer sleeve version, then you can actually take a look at the original video workshop where we are doing decreases down the bottom, and I show you how to measure what the size of your cuff is going to be, how many stitches you'll need for that, and then just calculating roughly how often you're going to decrease as you go down the sleeve. With the most important thing, if you're doing that you record it so that your two sleeves are going to be the same, because that's really important. But for the sleeves, regardless of what you're doing, whether you're just going to do an edging or if you're going to do a short sleeve or 3/4 or a long sleeve, you're going to start by picking up stitches, beginning at the bottom and picking up all the way around the armhole. And then you're going to just start working in stockinette stitch, or if you've got a different stitch pattern you want to work. Other decision you're going to want to make is colors. So with what I've mainly got green left, so I think I'll probably just leave this as green. If I had more of this, I'd probably mirror what we did here, where we had the helical stripes for a few rows, and then I moved into this. So if you had more of that color, you could go ahead and do that on the sleeves as well, going a little on each side. If you don't have a huge amount of it and you want to make sure that you've got the sleeves matching up, before you get started, weigh the yarn you've got and split it in two. So get a little weighing scales, wind the yarn off, and when it hits, so if you start with 20 grams, when you hit 10 grams left on your weighing scales, then cut it in half and you've got equal amount for each sleeve. And that makes your life far, far easier, because then you know that you're going to be able to mirror what you did on the first side with the second side. And that's really important with the stash dive, because you're not going to easily be able to get more of of the yarn you've got. So you need to make sure that anything you do, if you do it on one side, you can match it on the other side. So that's kind of the only way to actually ensure that that happens. But for now, I'm going to take a look at picking up stitches and testing out different length sleeves with you. I am moving along into my sleeve now, and I want to do a bit of a reality check, because what we're going to do for the sleeves is, this is our sleeve opening. We're going to pick up stitches all the way around, and then we're going to knit a tube from there down. If you do a short sleeve, then it'll be a tiny tube, just a small bit. You won't need any decreases or anything. If you want a more full length sleeve, then you'll work decreases in the bottom. So, and let me pull over the previous stash dive one is here. And you see it was the same thing, where we start at the underarm here, pick up stitches all the way up to here, and the same again all the way down the second side, and then you join in the round and you knit from this point down. And you see the top part is straight and all of the decreases happen on the bottom. So me straighten this up a little bit here. So you've got, this is the widest point here, and this is the narrowest point here with those happening here. So you've got, at the start of the round, you'll have one decrease. At the end of the round, you'll have a second decrease. And you just space those periodically down depending on the length you want. So when it's actually almost easier to do this once you've got the stitches picked up, particularly if you're using like magic loop or something, because then with the stitches picked up, you get to go and kind of stretch it out and really see what it looks like on your, as you're wearing it. And you can see where this lies, because this is sitting quite far out on your body. If you're intending on doing a long sleeve, this is not going to start at your underarm. This is going to be starting kind of a little bit further down your actual sleeve. So you want to know the length of this that you've got to work with. And then once you've got the length, you can calculate what that means for rows. So say for instance, like, and this is not what's here, say we had 40 rows was 4 inches or 10 centimeters. And what I wanted here was 12 inches all the way down here. So 40 rows divided by 4 means that I have 10 rows for every 1 centimeter. And if I want 12 centimeters, I multiply that 10 by 12. And it would mean I'd have 120 rows all the way down there. And you know, I'll show you in a minute how we calculate the stitches up here, how many stitches we pick up. And then you'll do the same thing measuring your cuff to see what size you want that to be and how many stitches. And then you'll take one away from the other and you can tell how many you've got. But first, I'm going to look at these stitches. So I've just over here, I just started doing a small bit of calculations. So if you're assuming your gauge is 20 stitches for every 4 inches or 10 centimeters, 4 inches, I divide it by 4 and I get 5 stitches for every inch. For centimeters, I divide it by 10 and I get 2 stitches for every 1 centimeter. Now, when I said length here, what that is just doing a double check on the length of my armhole opening. So from here, let me kind of straighten this out. You should probably, if you steam this, you'll get a better measurement. So from the armhole in here up to the top here, you can see what I'm getting is 7.5 inches, which what I've put down here. So then I'm multiplying this by 5, which is my 5 stitches per inch, and it gives me 37.5. So I'm just going to round that up to 38. So that's for one side here, and then the second side is going to be by 2. So that's 76 stitches altogether. And I can in fact measure, I can tell you how many, what size that is for my gauge. So 76 divided by 5, it means it's 15.2 inches is going to be the circumference of the top of my arm here. Now, let me make my sleeve here. So that is, you know, that's 15.2 inches to the start here. And if I want to come down to the cuff, and if I want the cuff to only be 10 inches, that will mean it's 10 by 5 is going to be 50 stitches is what I would need down here. So I'll start with 76 stitches and I want to end with 50. So you'll take 50 from 76, 76 minus 50. 76 minus 50 is equal to 26. So I want to decrease 26, but every round you're decreasing 2. So that will mean that I've got 13 decrease rounds. So there'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. You can see how many you have. And you're going to want a couple of inches, another little bit down here that you won't want any decreases in. So basically you're going to then just divide in how many rounds or how many inches. You might go ahead and say, I want to make the cuff 2 inches and I want at least another 1 inch where there's nothing happening here. And we had said if we have 12 inches minus 2 minus 1 is going to give me 9 inches. And I said that every inch is 10 rows. By 10 rows would be 90 rows. Okay, and if we wanted 13 divided, 90 divide 13, and it will give me 6.9 rows between each one. So I would probably round this down to just 6. So that would be an awful lot of decreases for a fairly short space. So it would mean I would have 5 rounds straight and then 1 decrease round. So that would be a very, very fast decrease because you'd have a large upper sleeve and very little down here. I'm going to make things a lot easier for myself because I'm probably going to have no decreases and just leave it nice and wide because I just want really kind of a little edging and a tiny little bit of a cap up on the top. But I'll show you next how we go pick up stitches and what that looks like. I'm back to you with my sleeve here, and I've done a little sleeve. Let me check the length that I've done on this. So I've got just shy of 3 inches for the sleeve. Now I tried it on and I quite liked the way that looked. The only thing that I wasn't crazy about is the fact that I did no decreases and I feel the end of it flared out a little bit. So I think I might do, as I'm doing my, either before or as I'm doing my bind off, some decreases. So if you're doing it beforehand, it might be maybe once every 5 or 6 stitches. So I'll just kind of go around where I'll knit 1, 2, 3, 4, and then do a knit 2 together. Just to kind of not, it won't be enough to make it a gathered one, but it could be enough to just give it a little bit more fitting all the way around. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and knit 2 together. And I'm just going to, that's just, it's nothing very specific. It's just a small little one just to kind of tuck the edge in to make it a little bit tighter. You can see here when I did my end down here, it's still curling like crazy obviously, but once I block that, that will lie a lot flatter, and this is the I-cord edging I'm going to have in my body. I like keeping edging all the same if I can. So for the edge of my sleeves, I think I'm again going to do just an I-cord edging all the way around. So again, it's not going to pull it in, it'll be fairly wide. So I think doing a little bit of gathering beforehand makes sense. Now the final decision I'll have to make is going to be for my neck. So the neck opening, when I tried this on, I actually really like the size it is. It fits comfortably over my head. It doesn't, it's a little bit open, but it's not crazy. So I just want to tidy this up. And the 2 options I kind of have available to me are either something like this, an I-cord edging around it, which would make a lot of sense. And the other one, if you want to keep it even simpler, is possibly like a crocheted edging around, where you can just do single crochet all the way around. But I think, as I was saying about keeping all of the edging matching up, that doing I-cord makes the most sense. Now, because I don't really want this any tighter, I'm going to make sure I pick up plenty of stitches, and I may use a slightly larger needle size as well to make sure the I-cord doesn't pull in too much. When I'm picking up stitches, across the back here, you can see there was each of my cast on stitches. So it's really obvious where each of these stitches are. So as I'm coming along here, when I'm picking them up, I'll just go 1 for 1. I'll pick that up, I'll pretend this is the yarn here because I'm not quite there yet. Wrap the yarn around, come into the next one. See, that's the first stitch. Come into the next stitch, go into the head of the stitch, wrap it around, pull it through. And you're going to want 1 for 1 all the way across here, because 1 stitch here is what's going to be 1 stitch of the I-cord. The slope here, where I was increasing, you'll usually do about 3 for every 4. So you'll pick up 1, 2, 3 and skip the 4th one, similar to what we did on the sleeves. And as you come along here, you're going to want to pick up 1 for every 1 of those front neck stitches. You see where you get these gaps across here? The best way of avoiding that is to just bypass it. So when you're coming along here, make sure you pick up the very last one. Say if you're just in around here, pick up and wrap that one. Now this place here where there's an obvious hole, don't go into that. The next stitch that you pick up should be this one here. So if you pick up here and here, pull it together, it does a really good job of covering that hole up. So just kind of ignore it is the best way of doing it. Find a nice snug hole here and a snug one there, and the 2 of those pulled together will actually really help join that up. 1 for 1 across each of these where you're the cast on, and then you're back up to the other side. And then you just join in the round, and you can do your I-cord bind off around here. Or if you opt to do your crochet edging, then do it that way. For this one, I was introducing this at the very beginning and showed you that my neck opening ended up way too big for this one. So what I ended up doing was a ribbing with a smaller needle size to pull it in, and I did it quite wide. So you can do that as well. If you've got similar edging at the bottom of your body of your sweater and your sleeves, you can do the same thing here. Or if your neck ended up too open, then do a wider ribbing, possibly, or even some other form of edging, but do decreases so that it pulls in as you go in, and you can go even a little wider if you want to, if necessary. Work decreases, reduce the needle size, whatever, just to pull it in. But for this one, we definitely don't want it any tighter, so I am just going to tidy up the edging, help it to kind of not curl across the back here, and I think that's all I need to do for this. So I do hope you've enjoyed the Stash Dive knit along. I know you won't have it quite finished, but remember, when you're working through it, keep trying it on and keep asking if it's turning out the way you want it to. If you're in doubt about lengths and things like that, make sure you steam it as you're working so that you can get a better gauge of the length. And if you're working linen or anything where it looks very different when it's being worked versus when it's finished, make sure you wet block at the end so that you can really finish it off nicely, and it will make all the difference, particularly if you've got an edge that is rolling like this that you're going to need to straighten out. So now that we've come to the end of the Stash Dive knit along, I wanted to share with you the finished sweater. I'm really happy with it, and I'm like really particularly happy that I got to finish it before I go on holiday, so I am going to get some proper use out of it. So let me stand back here a little. You can see it's fractionally longer than this one, little bit narrower, not too much. And one thing I discovered with working with linen, and it's the same with a lot of other plant fibers, is because the stitches as you're working it can tend to be a little bit uneven, the blocking process is really important. And when I blocked this, the linen transformed. Like the stitches that were a little bit uneven and kind of some larger, some bigger, as I wet blocked it and I actually put it into a very slow spin cycle of my washing machine to just really allow the stitches to and the linen to soften up a little, it really changed, and it became, the stitches are far more even. It was actually an even better result than I'd hoped for. I knew it was going to have a certain impact in that direction, but it kind of exceeded my expectations. So keep that in mind if you are working with linen. It will look very different post blocking. So I'd even suggest when you've got your swatch, make sure that you have blocked it. It did tighten up ever so slightly. So, you know, when I was saying at the very beginning, the gauge had grown a little, the reality ended somewhere in between the two. So it is slightly bigger than the original swatch. It's not as big as this one, so it ended up a size that's really comfortable. I'm glad I adjusted with the sleeves. I like the length of the sleeves. I think they finish it off, but without being so long that it's going to be too warm for hot weather. Length was the same thing. I kind of liked the length with it. I blocked it and kind of give it a nice stretch so it was drapey and that the roll is gone with the bottom of it. I have one little admission to make here. About 4 inches from the end of my I-cord bind off, I ran out of this grey color yarn. So I've got a little green patch of I-cord over here. I kind of like it. It definitely makes it look unique. If it bothered me enough, I'd probably have just gone and taken the I-cord I had done out and ripped back 1 or 2 rounds. But I'm okay with it. I can live with it. But it does make you realize that I-cord bind-offs take a lot more yarn than you're expecting. So I hope you've been enjoying this whole series of Stash Dive, our summer Stash Dive. If you're still in progress, and I know that everyone's going to be knitting at their own pace, then make sure you jump into the Stash Dive forum and Knit Hub. We'll be in there to chat with you and kind of give you some feedback, or to commiserate with you or celebrate with you, whatever it might be, as you're making your way through it. So jump into Knit Hub and the whole Stash Dive story will continue in there.